Thank you very much for the opportunity. I'm going to start my dialogue to just maybe reflect back and commend the Road Partnership and Buddy Brits for the excellent work that they've done on this campus. Can we give them another round of applause, please? Second part of my dialogue, Henry, I said that there needs to be 1,000 people before I speak, so I guess this is double pay. Welcome everyone. My name is Henry said, Charl, Pierre, Celliers, local architect, Bloemfontein Cube Architects. And I'm here to speak about two buildings that we've designed on campus. Our conversation with physical planning, the units at the university, giving us our briefs were very one-sided. They said to us very briefly that there's two redundant areas on campus, hybrid spaces. One is a parking lot, and the other one is an unsecure, unsafe space. Please design us two buildings, a big one and a small one. The big one has got a low budget, the small one has got a high budget. The big one has got a huge accommodation and a very short or a very small footprint, and the bigger one is one of its kind. It's never been designed in South Africa yet, so go for it. I went back to my team and I said to them, we need our creative juices to flow now. And on that point, in our firm, it's not the egos that's on the table. I would like to give credit to some of the people, like Katie that you all know, Bianca and Erika, and as well as Incline Architects that were jointly appointed with us on one of these buildings. As a student conference, we would also like to give you something that you can take home. And through all the presentations that you've seen this morning, it is very clear that there's a certain process that you have to follow to design a building. And we're going to run through the process that we have followed to create these two buildings on campus. And maybe you can take something home from that. Maybe understand that you sometimes have to rewrite the brief from the client, which doesn't make sense. You sometimes have to intervene and converse and have a dialogue with a lot of people and a lot of elements before you can start designing a building. So we have started by looking at a conversation with a context. You need to understand your context very well, and then also the user client. You need to conversate with your user client. Then the immediate site, as well as the public at large. So these are four elements of the process, the thought process that we have followed to design these two buildings that I'm going to present to you now. The first building was for the Economic Management Science faculty, and the other one for Allied Health. As you can see, thank you very much for the opportunity. I'm going to start my dialogue to just maybe reflect back and commend the Road Partnership and Buddy Brits for the excellent work that they've done on this campus. Can we give them another round of applause, please? Second part of my dialogue, Henry, I said that there needs to be 1,000 people before I speak, so I guess this is double pay. Welcome everyone. My name is Henry said, Charl, Pierre, Celliers, local architect, Bloemfontein Cube Architects. And I'm here to speak about two buildings that we've designed on campus. Our conversation with physical planning, the units at the university, giving us our briefs were very one-sided. They said to us very briefly that there's two redundant areas on campus, hybrid spaces. One is a parking lot, and the other one is an unsecure, unsafe space. Please design us two buildings, a big one and a small one. The big one has got a low budget, the small one has got a high budget. The big one has got a huge accommodation and a very short or a very small footprint, and the bigger one is one of its kind. It's never been designed in South Africa yet, so go for it. I went back to my team and I said to them, we need our creative juices to flow now. And on that point, in our firm, it's not the egos that's on the table. I would like to give credit to some of the people, like Katie that you all know, Bianca and Erika, and as well as Incline Architects that were jointly appointed with us on one of these buildings. As a student conference, we would also like to give you something that you can take home. And through all the presentations that you've seen this morning, it is very clear that there's a certain process that you have to follow to design a building. And we're going to run through the process that we have followed to create these two buildings on campus. And maybe you can take something home from that. Maybe understand that you sometimes have to rewrite the brief from the client, which doesn't make sense. You sometimes have to intervene and converse and have a dialogue with a lot of people and a lot of elements before you can start designing a building. So we have started by looking at a conversation with a context. You need to understand your context very well, and then also the user client. You need to conversate with your user client. Then the immediate site, as well as the public at large. So these are four elements of the process, the thought process that we have followed to design these two buildings that I'm going to present to you now. The first building was for the Economic Management Science faculty, and the other one for Allied Health. As you can see, that's the main entrance to the campus. DF Malabo has got two entrances up there and down here. The first building that we had to design was the Economic Management Science, and it's situated over there, behind the in front of the Flippy Groenewald and behind the Wynand Beton Theatre, wedged between those two buildings. The other site that we were allocated was behind, on the southern boundary of the entire campus, between the medical faculty and the existing buildings on that side. If you enter directly from the south entrance, that is the site. Just to familiarise yourself with the two. Okay, so the first site for the Economic Management Science building is situated behind the Wynand Beton and in front of the Flippy Groenewald, between Fakulteit Drive and De Cons Avenue. It's bordered, or it's wedged between those two buildings. As you can see, it was a redundant parking area for the public theatre, the Wynand Beton Theatre, and the two streets adjacent to that played an important form-giving factor in that site. Also, the taxi terminus, as well as the student centre that was presented previously, played a major role in the design of this building. Luckily, the only positive thing about the site, it was facing north. You can see the summer and the winter sun infall. Important factors that we had to include into our design. The public spaces, all the green areas that you can see is the public spaces that we tried to connect with our site in terms of the design, as well as the destinations, such as the taxi terminus and the student centre. The destinations had to be connected into this design, as well as the pedestrian walkways, as well the existing, as well as creating new pedestrian walkways in terms of the accommodation of the site. The initial concept sketch, the footprint of the Wynand Beton Theatre looks like a polo neck jersey over there, and then the building is wedged between the Flippy Groenewald and that open space in there. So the two functions of the building being a business school, that the brief was to design a school of business, which means that's where high-profile clients, like the head of Anglo-American and ABSA and all those nice companies, come and study their MBA. So it's not students, it's clients to the university and very high-profile clients. Secondly, the increasing number of students on campus has resulted in the demand for new lecture facilities. So the building, or the brief, was to construct 18 new lecture facilities as well as a 800-seater auditorium, and then the entire new economic management school, which included the business school, where we have high-profile clients to the university. So we've wedged the two functions into two separate linear elements on the site. We even had to bridge the road due to the accommodation list that we had to accommodate on this. Now, if we were to building into a space between two other structures, it's very difficult. You have to be very sensitive in terms of such a large accommodation list. So it resulted in separating the two functions in terms of lecture hall as well as then the School of Business that was accommodated on site. One step further from concept sketch was to get the sizes of the accommodation and the scale and the proportions ready. There you can clearly see resulting from the concept sketch the two elements of the building. We have echoed that curved line to create the massive auditorium that we had to design, also in terms of the entrance of the business school building, to utilize most of the site. And by doing this in a sensitive way, we had to deal with mass and porosity, solid forms and transparent forms. There were two masses in these two buildings that we had to accommodate on the site, that being the School of Business and the lecture hall facility, giving us a subtle backdrop to design the circulation spaces from, as well as the rest of the building. There you can see the two masses on 3D, the business school and then the lecture hall facility as deriving from the concept. And then our big mama that we had to bury, our 800-seater auditorium, which is a massive structure and it's a very bulky item to work with. And that was accommodated on that section of the site, which is lower, and we could reduce the volume by pulling that into earth. So that is the masses that we had to deal with. In section, and this section shows the layering as well as the scale that we had to derive from the Flippy Groenewald height right onto the foyer of the Wynand Theatre, which is a public space, a public theatre. So we had to take the layering and the human scale in consideration while designing this big building. Flowing out from our masses is the semi-public or the private spaces like the offices and the ablutions and services, flowing out onto the circulation and lobby areas, and also creating spaces between the buildings, gathering spaces, because the amount of people that you must accommodate in the building, when the class ends, everyone goes outside, so it's a public interface where you have to cater for these people to stand, wait for the next class, etc. So there's three main areas in front of the entrance of the business school, gathering area up there, as well as in front of the classroom facility on the roof terrace, and then from the big area down here in front of the Wynand Theatre is the gathering space that spills out on curved steps that can be used as seating areas as well. Then linking the pedestrian walkways from Fakulteitsweg and Decans Avenue, anchoring it on that side to create a flow of pedestrians right through the buildings and right through the spaces between the buildings onto these two avenues was quite important for us to achieve. If we talk about the conversation with the public, porosity and scale as well as material were the three main components that we had to, that we used as the language that we communicated with to the general public. And if you arrive from the northern entrance to this facility that we created, you can see due to the accommodation list, it's a monumental building, but we try to acknowledge the human scale when you enter from the side into the facility. So scale was very, very important to us to handle very sensitively in terms of this design. The next slide will show also the big auditorium building that we had to sink into the land to create a proper scale in terms of the design. Then porosity was quite important to us, especially with the Flippy Groenewald at the back. You can see clearly in this building that we've cut open sections in the building for the backdrop to shine through, for people to be able to connect with the buildings behind it. to be transparent, also to see what is happening behind and not create a solid mass in terms of the building design. Also splitting up the two buildings, we created space between the buildings, the solid mass, then with the circulation areas in front, which dematerialized so that you can see through it. Those elements were quite important in terms of the design of this building. There you can also see the use of glass and the concrete frame that you can see through into the next layer on campus was quite important to us. Once again, existing trees that we've kept, and we've wrapped the building almost into these trees. See-through elements, the porosity was very important for us in terms of this, from the inside out as well. This is the main entrance from the business school, so you can see right through. The lobby areas with large glass infill panels was quite important for us to keep the connection from inside and outside, so that one can understand the language of the building. Also the gathering spaces, we've made use of outside terraces on roof gardens for people to gather, exiting the lecture hall facilities onto these spaces. These photographs were taken before the building was commenced. It looks better, there's people using it actually. There's one little cell there, but there's more. And then also materials. Now, as a student conference, and some of the people know that I have lectured building science at this university, it's very important that you do understand your materials and the properties of your material 100% before you apply them in terms of building. Materials are the stuff that we work with, and if you don't understand your materials, you will fail some tests as a young architect. So my advice is get your knowledge in terms of materials on the go. All the entrances to these buildings, our shading devices is red aluminium louvers, which also accentuate the entrances to the business school as well as the lecture hall facilities. That was one of the materials that we've used successfully. Then wood, everything that you can touch in these buildings are made of wood to create the warmth. The custom-made furniture and benches that we've introduced in the public spaces, all manufactured out of wood to create a certain warmth. The stair balustrade handrails, as well as the treads and risers, were created out of wood. And then, as you can see, the red face brick that is echoed through the entire campus, we've transformed and translated into seating areas, pedestrian walkways. We've echoed everything that is existing on campus right through to our landscape design to resonate with the rest of the campus. Once again, just the views, the critical mass areas we've kept in concrete. Where's our sponsors, PPC? We've used a lot of your concrete and cement, as well as the masses at the back. There you can see the use of porosity to dematerialize some of these elements in the building. Once again, and just for fun, I think we've created a platform in a once redundant area on campus where students can interact, have conversation, and interact with the building environment. And we were privileged to be part of this project. The next one that I would like to present to you is Allied Health Skills, the Skills Laboratory. Now with this building, what made it very interesting, it was also hybrid space, wedged in between the southern fence of the university, as well as the occupational therapy building, the existing one. And safety on this area are frequently compromised, where people break through the fence and vandalize some of the buildings on that side, steal stuff. So it was unsecure space, which we also had to recycle and do something with. Occupational therapy, physiotherapy and dietitians have got international handbooks where they study from. It is first world knowledge that they have to apply within almost third world circumstances. The displacement of a person from a wheelchair or from a pollution facility, a WC, to a wheelchair is much different in our country than it is in European countries. In Europe, you always come from the side, pick somebody up from the toilet and put them back onto their wheelchair. Now, sometimes in rural areas where you have to lift a disabled person from a shack or very dilapidated sort of circumstances or structures that's not on first world standards, these are the challenges that these people had to face. So this building was erected and designed in such a way that these people, occupational therapy as well as physiotherapy, can adopt the necessary skills for our country to help people with disabilities and to train them to displace people with disabilities and give them the necessary skill to operate in the real world in South Africa. So this facility was the first of its kind in South Africa. We haven't had a president to study. There was nothing. We had to start from scratch. And the accommodation of the building was quite simple. It was the majority of the building is storerooms, and then multifunctional areas where they can train people. That was the brief of the building. Just to familiarize you with where on campus it was situated, that is the southwest entrance to the university. That's Franco Retief, the medical faculty. The CR de Wet building was an old hostel, and they've given us on the southern side an open parking area there that we had to design the building for the skills lab. So that was the challenge that we had to face with. Traditionally, the building was designed very linear and two definite lines with a connecting circulation space, and our brief was just to continue with that, just complete the building at the bottom. So that's exactly what we did. There were courtyards between the buildings, and we had to recreate another courtyard on the side of the building itself. Over there you can see the linear form of the building on plan and in section, the existing and the proposed new over there in section, and the photographs illustrates exactly the old and the new site that we had to develop. Once again, just in terms of the existing building, and another challenge that we've had is there was a fully operational occupation therapy practice that we hadn't to touch. We couldn't touch it or move it or demolish it. So these people were there. We had to design the building around them, and they were fully operational while we were constructing this facility. So that was kind of a challenge. And that is situated over there. What is important about this design of the building was to create a southern entrance to link the occupational therapy and physiotherapy students to the medical facility onto that pedestrian. So we had to create a southern entrance to this building to make it easier. There's the existing courtyard, and we had to create a new courtyard between these two buildings to echo the design, and that is the linear circulation space. Now that is how the circulation area looked before we started with the building. That connects the medical faculty students right through our building into the new facility. That was the existing, and this is how it looks now. There you can see on section the blue line indicates the circulation through the buildings that we adopted. Now, this sort of brutalist facade over here, we had to accommodate a safety factor into this building, and we used, once again, our sponsor PPC, a lot of their material, onto this brutal facade on this section, and we dematerialized even this wall so that you get glimpses from the inside to the southern side of the building, so that you can still have interaction between these two spaces, but still makes it very safe. On plan, that's the red line that indicates the southern facade of the building. We've also echoed a little bit of the facade further on and dematerialized it into the safer areas on campus. Alright, the layering of the building was quite simple. We used from the entrance that concrete wall, and then the storerooms we've also added on the southern facade as a barrier. Then the gym areas, the open spaces, the multifunctional areas as open spaces on the inside of the building. Administrative and computer lab functions on that side, as then the transparent facade on that side spilling out onto the interactive courtyard in front. That's the southern facade of the building, and that's the northern facade of the building. You can clearly see the dematerialization that happened on that facade through the design process. Now, this is a very pretty picture. We're very proud of it. This is how the building looks currently after it's been constructed. The accommodation, once again, reception, and then the active gym area, practice area, where they train the people, the students, to become good in the field. And then these multifunctional areas with the gyms, as they call it, that spills out onto this interactive courtyard, which I will speak about more in detail later on. That was the total brief of the building. It sounds very simple, but it was quite difficult to understand exactly what they wanted. The entrance foyer to the building, we've created the locker areas for people to store their stuff. That's in that section over there. So we've kept it transparent to echo also on that linear circulation through the building. That photograph is the passage there in front, and this is sort of glimpses of how the people, the students in the centre gets trained, helping people into wheelchairs, etc. Another photograph of how the facility has been utilised. It looks like fun. Just to give you an idea of how the facility is used. We made sure that the steel is able to carry the weight. Over here you can see clearly on the picture the gym areas with the doors that can separate them or create them or keep them as one large multifunctional area to cater for whatever need. You can see that the storerooms are utilised to wheel out a mock-up ablution facility so that the person can sit on a toilet and be displaced into a wheelchair. They are wheeled back into the storerooms when they're done, and then the space is open again for other uses. But there you can see when it's open, the storerooms at the back and the mirrors that they requested. Once again, the open facility with the storerooms there at the back. And then all the interactive courtyard in front. This is the only time in my life that I was asked to deviate from the national building regulations. So we had to construct ramps that was a little bit more steep for the wheelchairs to be, for people in wheelchairs to be trained and exercised. So all these ramps in the front garden were specifically made out of different materials and different inclines for people to be trained how to use wheelchairs and how to use facilities like that. So this is also a first for a lot of us. That was the opening of the building, the functions, the ramps that were utilised, the seating areas as well. And then just the interface with the public. There you can clearly see the dematerialised northern facade, the southern facade, and our element combining everything, the pivotal point throughout the whole design that we've used there. Thank you very much.